This particular live broadcast is brought to you courtesy of the collaboration between the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation in conjunction with the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. To just take you through the highlights in the order of business this afternoon, senators have a couple of agendas that they'll be considering the moment the House commences business at 2:30. And the Employment Amendment Bill, Bill number 11 of the year 2022, is a bill that's this afternoon. This particular bill is by the Senator for Nandi County, Senator Samson Cherargei. The debate on this particular bill is almost concluded, and what is remaining is for the move of this particular bill to be called to reply. After consideration of the Employment Amendment Bill, the senators will consider a couple of bills under the Committee of the Whole. These particular bills are the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill. This is Bill number 5 of the year 2022 by Senator Danson Mungatana. Another bill by Senator Danson Mungatana, the Senator for Taita Taveta County, is a Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill. And this is Bills number 6 of the year 2022. Similarly, the House will also be considering the Preservation of Human Dignity and Enforcement of Economic and Social Rights Bill. This is Senate Bills number 7 of the year 2022. After consideration of those particular bills under the Committee of the Whole, senators will be considering the Learners with Disability Bill, a bill by Senator Professor Margaret Kamar and nominated Senator Crystal Asige. The Heritage and Museums Bills is another bill that senators are also set to consider this afternoon. A couple of motions have also been lined up for debate this afternoon. The State of Mental Health of Police Officers by Senator Hamida Kibwana, as well as the compensation of the Kenyan victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States Embassy in Nairobi, is a motion by Senator Agnes Kavindu, the Senator for Machakos County. The senators are set to consider this afternoon. Equally, senators will be considering the development of a policy and law for social risk management in matters infrastructure development projects in Kenya, and this is a motion by Senator Catherine Muma. And in this particular motion, nominated Senator Catherine Muma seeks to have the Senate resolve that the national and county governments do develop a social risk management policy that outlines the standards, guidelines, and procedures for guiding infrastructure, as well as other development projects, both at the national and county governments level. The National Executive establishes an independent multi-sectoral agency under the authority of the Cabinet Secretary in charge of social security and protection to design a mechanism that can factor in the inclusion of social impact assessment standards and monitor their implementations in matters to do with infrastructure and other developments in the country. The designation of a monthly car-free day and county car-free zones is also a motion that senators will be debating this afternoon. Let me now take you through the statements that will be made on the floor of the House this afternoon, and this is pursuant to Standing Orders number 53, subsection 1, where nominated Senator Tabitha Mutinda will be seeking a statement from the Standing Committee on Matters Lands and Natural Resources concerning the regulation of sand harvesting in Kitui County. The Senator for Nairobi County, Senator Edwin Sifuna, will be seeking a statement from the Standing Committee on Matters Agriculture over the non-payment of dairy farmers dues by the New Kenya Cooperative Creameries, KCC. The business of the Senate is commencing now. Allow me to hand over for the live broadcast of these particular live proceedings. Enjoy your viewing.
To behold with abundant favor and blessings us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you've committed to our charge. Amen. Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly proceed to call the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Kingi, currently presiding over the business of the Senate this afternoon, has directed the Sergeant at Arms, pursuant to standing orders of the Senate, to ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes, and this is to somewhat give some minutes, 10 minutes, as per his directive, to senators within the presence of Parliament to make their way into the chamber this afternoon to raise the quorum for senators to commence business. Pursuant to standing orders of the House, standing orders number 53, subsection 1, nominated Senator Hamida Kibwana will be seeking a statement from the Standing Committee on Matters National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the challenges in the issuance of passports and alleged corruption in the Directorate of Immigration Services. Similarly, Senator Kibwana will be seeking a statement from the Health Committee concerning the actions to make cancer treatment accessible and affordable for Kenya. Nominated Senator Beth Siengo will be seeking a statement from the Standing Committee on Matters Trade and Industrialization on matters tourism regarding promotion and marketing of tourist sites in the eastern region part of Kenya. The Senate has raised the quorum this afternoon. Allow me to hand over for this live broadcast. Enjoy your viewing.
Honorable Senators, it is with deep sorrow that I notify you of the untimely demise of Mrs. Maria Elizabeth Ajibodu, Principal Clerk Assistant 1, personal number 9903735, serving in the Directorate of Legislative and Procedural Services in the Senate. Mrs. Ajibodu passed away in the evening of yesterday, Tuesday, 6th June 2023. Honorable Senators, the late Mrs. Maria Elizabeth Ajibodu was born on 24th December 1968. She held a Master's of Science degree in Community Economic Development and a Bachelor of Science degree in Marketing, both from the New Hampshire College in Manchester. The departed officer obtained her O and A levels at the Hillcrest Secondary School in Nairobi. The late Mrs. Ajibodu joined the parliamentary service on the 6th of December 2005 as a personal assistant in the then office of the Vice President and leader of government business. On 21st April 2009, she joined the Directorate of Legislative and Procedural Services in the National Assembly as a clerk assistant, serving in the table, room 8. Following the promulgation of the new constitution in 2010, Mrs. Ajibodu joined the Senate service in February 2013 as a senior clerk assistant in the Directorate of Committee Services. She later joined the Directorate of Legislative and Procedural Services, where she rose to the level of Principal Clerk Assistant 1, heading the Journal's Procedural Research and Records Department, where she served until her demise. Indeed, Mrs. Ajibodu was on duty and called out the orders at the table in this chamber yesterday afternoon. Honorable Senators, the late Mrs. Ajibodu has been an exceptional parliamentary officer who personified commitment and diligence in service. Her death is indeed a big loss to the parliamentary service, the wider parliamentary fraternity, and the Senate in particular. Our thoughts and prayers are with her, with her family, friends, and colleagues at this most tiring time. A condolence book has been opened in the office of the clerk on the first floor of the main parliamentary buildings for members and staff who wish to convey their condolences to the family and friends. Honorable Senators, on behalf of all senators and the entire staff of Parliament, and indeed on my own behalf, I wish to take this opportunity to condole with the family of Mrs. Ajibodu, parliamentary staff, and all her friends in this most difficult time. The Parliament of Kenya has indeed lost a diligent and committed staffer. Honorable Senators, in honor of departed staffer, I request that we all stand and observe a minute of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. May the soul of the late Mrs. Maria Elizabeth Ajibodu rest in eternal peace. Okay. Next order, clerk. Honorable Senators, I will allow we need to agree that we restrict time, because I know if not all of you, many of you would wish to say a word of condolence, and therefore I will restrict 2 minutes per person. We'll start with the leader of majority.
Thank you, Speaker, for indulging us. This is a very sad day indeed for the Senate. Mr. Speaker, of course, when the news broke out this morning, it took a while for it to sink to many of us who have... Did I lose the mic? It took a while, Mr. Speaker, for those of us that have served with Maria over the years in this House to come to terms with the fact that we now have to speak about her in past tense, Mr. Speaker. This sounds, looks, has all the descriptions of a bad dream, Mr. Speaker, that somebody I sat 10 meters away from yesterday, looking fully energetic, served us well here in the House, is no more. Reminds us, Mr. Speaker, of the frailty of life and how the fact that, just like a candle, we can easily be switched off. We celebrate Maria, very humble lady. Mr. Speaker, I say this having served as a chairperson of staff welfare for the 5 years, interacting with many of our staffers here in Parliament, knowing each of their giftings, their backgrounds. You would never know that she comes from one of the most respected families in the country, Mr. Speaker, but to easily keep her calm, serve senators and members of staff equally, and respect everybody that sought her services. The Senate is all the more poorer, Mr. Speaker, right now because of her absence from now going forward. We join the rest of the staffers of Parliament, together with you, Mr. Speaker, in passing a word of condolences to her immediate family and friends, and hope that God will grant us the fortitude to bear this loss. Rest in peace, our dear sister Mariam. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Enoch.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to take this opportunity to console with the family of our late friend and actually colleague, Maria, to me, Mr. Speaker, for some reason, I just learned of those news like 30 minutes ago. So the reality is still sinking. The Speaker, Maria is a lady that served with distinction. A committed staffer, very amiable. I called her our daughter because of our origins. And the Speaker, through you and the office of the clerk, I want to pass my condolences to the staff of Parliament, and especially those who served the clerk's table with Maria, the director and colleagues. We say poleni. The Speaker, as the news sinks, then as a Senate, we shall all unite to give Maria a decent and befitting farewell. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Boni, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, you have just broken the news to me. In fact, I was shocked when you mentioned her name. This is a lady, Mr. Speaker, who joined Parliament when she was a young person. When I was a young person, you would never have known that Maria was the daughter of Modi Awori. My special condolences to Ango Muti and the rest of the family. Fare thee well, my sister.
Senator Osotsi.
Mr. Speaker, I join my colleagues to send my sincere condolences to the family of Maria for the untimely death of one of our most dedicated staffers here in the Senate. I actually spoke to her yesterday when she was seated there, and this morning I was very shocked to hear that she's no more. This clearly demonstrates that life is a gift and it can be turned off anytime. So I pray for the family, the Honorable Modi Awori's family, at this morning time, so that God gives them strength to endure the pain of the loss of one of our very great personalities in this Senate.
Senator Chute. Senator Nyotu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to join my colleagues in expressing my deepest condolences to the family of Maria, and indeed her most or the closest colleagues that they worked with. Mr. Speaker, this is a lady that was very composed. That is not to mean that our colleagues who wear blue are not composed as her. A very composed lady, very serious with her job and duties, Mr. Speaker. And just like Senator Osotsi has said, this is a lesson to all of us. That death can knock on the door of anyone, anytime. And though we may not preach in the Senate, but that then we need to be sure of our destiny, Mr. Speaker, anytime that we live. So I do not want to take much time, but say that indeed this is a great loss to us as a Senate, to the staff, especially led by the clerk. We say, may God rest her soul in eternal peace. Thank you.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to join yourself and the entire family of the Senate in passing sincere condolences to the family of Maria, especially Uncle Moody, who was the father and a very close friend of Maria. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I attended the speaker's panel. Maria was there. She did not look sick. And we came to the house, and I know I saw her with a mask. I think she had a bit of a flu. And this morning, I went off to Habitat. And while I was trying to register at the Gigiri, that's when I got the news that she had passed. Of course, she passed yesterday, but the news came out to the wider community today. Mr. Speaker, I am personally devastated. Maria has been hand-holding me in terms of learning the ropes in the Senate, not alone, but with the rest of the team. And she has been a friend. And beyond that, I knew Maria, her daughter Shade went to school, was a classmate of my daughter. And her sister-in-law, Marcia Wori, is a good friend of mine. So I feel the loss, and I know it is extremely devastating to the Awori family and to her husband. And I wish to ask that we continue praying for the family and put them before God. May her soul rest in peace. Thank you.
Senator Chirange.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On my own behalf and on behalf of my family and the people of Nandi, I want to take this opportunity to pass my deepest condolences. Mr. Speaker, sir, yesterday our sister was here, and although she was wearing a mask, she looked okay, and I was shocked in the morning to receive the sad news that she is no longer with us. Mr. Speaker, sir, coincidentally, the statement I brought about the MCS yesterday is Maria. I had intended to bring it as a motion, but we went and sat with her, and she took me through the entire process and advised me that it should have been better to come a statement to receive the necessary attention. For us who have worked with her, she was always composed, respectful to all the members. Mr. Speaker, she ensured that she was stickler to the parliamentary procedures. We looked upon her most of the time for consultation in terms of what we intended to present before the House. Mr. Speaker, I remember whenever you pass around the offices of parliamentary staff here in Senate, she is always standing, moving from one desk to another, trying to make things in order. So it is shocking that we have lost her. We have lost an epitome of experience in this House. My condolences to the clerk and the rest of the staff. Mr. Speaker, and I think it is important as a House, and I had brought this attention that going into the future, I'm not saying our staff are not well catered for, but as a House and through the Parliamentary Service Commission, we must endeavor to ensure the welfare of our staff who work with us are always our top priority alongside ours. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and poleni sana to the family.
Senator Ledama.
Mr. Speaker, my deepest condolences to you, the clerk. This clerk table will never be the same again. I remember Maria very well. At any time when I'm in doubt, whenever I need clarity, I would always approach her and I'll ask her, and she would be first to be able to guide me correctly. Mr. Speaker, her death reminds me, and it ought to remind all of us, that we are all passing through. There's a lot that is happening in this country, Mr. Speaker. Families are going through a very hard time. People are falling. And I think it's about time that we ask ourselves what is going on. Today it has hit so close to us. That's why in the entire Parliament precinct there is a somber mood. I walked into the Secretariat's offices and everyone is sad. We're sad because we have lost someone very close to us. I do hope that for the time that she has served this country, because being here as a clerk, a principal clerk, having started from being a personal assistant, she has learned a lot, and most of us will miss her agility and dedication to service, something that we must learn. Today is a very sad day, and I hope that her family will know that the family here in the Senate, whether we debate vigorously or what, that we condone with them, and that their joy and their tears we share with them. I pray that may God receive her soul and rest it in eternity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mungatana.
Bwana Spika, ningependa kuchukua nafasi hii kutoa salamu zangu pamoja na familia yangu na watu wa Tana River za rambirambi kwa jamaa na marafiki wa familia hii ya Senate. Sisi tukiwa hapa, sisi ni wachache, lakini Mwenyezi Mungu kwa mipango yake ametuondolea mmoja wetu katika familia hii. Saa ingine hatuna majibu kwa maswali, manake kuna wale wengine ambao ni wengi zaidi, hatusemi angechagua kule, lakini ni wengi zaidi kushinda huku, lakini Mwenyezi Mungu aliona achukue mmoja wetu. Tunasema pole kwa sisi sote, hasa wale ambao walikuwa wanafanya kazi karibu na yeye. Pili, Bwana Spika, natoa pia rambirambi zangu kwa familia ya makamu wetu wa rais wa zamani Mzee Mudi Waori ambaye tulifanya kazi na yeye. Tunasema pole sana, kwa sababu sisi ambao ni wazazi mara nyingi huwa hatuombi na hatutarajii ya kwamba watoto wetu watatembea kwenda mbele ya haki kabla sisi. Kwa hivyo tunasema pole sana kwa mzee, pole sana kwa familia, poleni sisi sote. Mungu atupe nguvu kwa wakati huu mgumu, atupatie neema tuweze kupitia wakati huu. Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me join the rest of my colleagues in passing my condolences to the family of the late Maria. Mr. Speaker, every now and then life will serve us these little reminders that in fact life itself is very fickle. The office of a clerk and our colleagues here will remember that just early this year we lost another colleague in similar circumstances. That we could be here today with you, and the very next day it is the Speaker making that communication about me. And it really raises difficult questions in our minds, Mr. Speaker, on the meaning of all this. I mean, sometimes we ask ourselves, why are we even here? And what is our purpose? Working in the service of the Senate and in the service of our country until the very last day is testament to her dedication. And we just want to say pole to the family of the late Maria, her colleagues who worked with her, and always remember that indeed this could be our very last day, each one of us, and that tomorrow we could be having this conversation about one of us. It is a very eerie deja vu for me, Mr. Speaker, because people have just been dying when least expected. I remember when we were in Dubai and we lost our brother Washington. It didn't seem that anything was wrong with him, and so with Maria. So, Mr. Speaker, allow me to just pass my gratitude for her service and to pass my condolences once again to say, may the Lord rest her soul in eternal peace. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mutinda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do pass my condolences to the family of Maria, the husband, the children that she has left. It's indeed quite sad. It's my first time to stand in this house to give condolences, because you never know when the door will ring, when the bell will ring. As my Nairobi senator has also mentioned, we lost another colleague a few months ago by the name Wellington in Dubai. Still a colleague and a staff in this Senate. It's not quite a very sad state. It's quite very shocking. But what I'm happy about is the fact that we have good words for Mariam. She was dedicated. She was eloquent. She was good in her roles that she was undertaking. As we continue delivering our services, it is good to ask, what will you say about me when one day you'll be talking about me? But because one day we shall all go, one day we shall all live, it is important to always try and make sure whatever opportunity that God has given you to do, always try and do to your best so that you leave a legacy for tomorrow. We continue celebrating Maria. We continue celebrating Wellington because we didn't have an opportunity to celebrate him. And we continue working together with you, the office of the clerk. From the time we came to this parliament, you've always supported the who I am today. I appreciate your office. May God bless you. Thank you.
Senator Oburu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I also want to join the voice of my colleagues in passing condolences to this great family, the family of the awardees. Mr. Speaker, I knew this lady. She was very, very humble. She was very hardworking. She was very simple. And Mr. Speaker, these are the qualities for which the awardees are known. She was a replica of her father. Her father loved her dearly. Her mother also loved her dearly. And this is a family, Mr. Speaker, with whom we have had very long relationship as a family. In fact, her grandfather is the one, Konon Awori, is the one who baptized me when I was a kid, when I was a small kid. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a great loss to us as a Senate. It is also a great loss to the family. And Mr. Speaker, I would just like to join and ask that the Almighty God rest her soul in peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wamatinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I also like to join my colleagues in passing my message of condolences to you, to the clerk, and indeed to all of us. I may not have interacted with Maria personally, but since we joined the Senate a couple of months ago, the Parliamentary Service Commission have stood out in one thing. They've held our hands with a lot of kindness to the new members, and most importantly, with a very, very humble approach and attitude and a lot of respect. As my colleagues, Senator Sifuna, have said, we lost another colleague just a few months ago in Dubai, and it was indeed very, very hard, as it is now. Someone who had no signs of any ill or sickness, just like that, passes on. And it is a reminder to us all that we are actually just transiting in this world, and it is not our home. And I would want to challenge us all. It is time that we start redefining our relationship with ourselves, and most importantly with our Maker, because definitely this world, as much as it is not our home, we may not know who's next. I therefore want to take this opportunity to pray that God gives the family and the colleagues solitude and fortitude to overcome this hard moments. May her soul rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to join you and colleagues in condoling the family of Maria. It's actually so shocking. It's difficult to imagine that Maria is now the late. Very shocking. Mr. Speaker, I have known Maria since I came to the Senate. I have been very fortunate to work closely with her. She was, I think, on the desk of SCP EU, and we traveled to very unique countries with her. A very diligent staff, a very respectful staff, a very jovial and happy person. Such a beautiful heart, Mr. Speaker. Maria, as Senator Alwale has said, there was no worry in her. She was her. She walked like herself, something that all of us in this house would wish our children would be, so that they are not an attachment to the legacies of their parents, but they become themselves. Maria, whenever we traveled, was an amazing person. You would not believe that this was a senator and a staff. We were like friends. We were very fortunate to go to very unique countries. I think it was Slovenia and Hungary. And when we decided with Maria we were going shopping, we went shopping. And we enjoyed ourselves. The latest was when we went to France last year, the last meeting of the SCPU before we broke out of this house. Thank you, Speaker, for the 1 minute. She is just a wonderful person. I want to say Paula to the family, to the awardees, and to the staff, because she was a friend of everybody. I think there is nobody whose heart she didn't touch, both the staff and as a Senate. May her soul rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kenywa. Let's keep it 2 minutes.
Question 2, clarify whether the ministry competitively recruited the non-teaching staffs that oversee the management of the said income-generating activities. Question 3, explain why the school's board of management is yet to approve projects proposed by the NGCDF or engage the NGCDF committee on the said proposals. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir, and honorable members. The answer to the question is as follows. Umoja One Primary School has only one income-generating activity, which is the swimming pool. The studio is not operational because the school is yet to recruit a competent operator to operate the studio. Also, the hall has never at any given time been hired, so it has never been able to generate any income ever since the time it was built. Honorable Speaker, the swimming pool generates income because runners from neighboring schools use it after paying a fee. Members of the public also use the swimming pool at a fee, particularly during weekends and the public holidays. So far, Honorable Speaker, the swimming pool has generated a total of 459,168 from January 2020 to April 2023. The breakdown is given on a monthly basis. I don't have to go to each and every month. So the income, Honorable Speaker, is parked in a designated swimming pool account at the Umoja branch of the Cooperative Bank of Kenya. The account statement for the said account is as provided in my answer and marked Annex 1. The balance so far in the account as at the 6th June 2023 was Kenya shillings 37,046.72. A monthly average, Honorable Speaker, of 192,000 out of the income is used to pay the salaries of employees supporting the swimming pool operations, and the amount normally varies depending on the season. Between 150,000 and 200,000 per month is also used for pool maintenance and chemicals, and also depending on the seasonal demand. Part of the revenue is used to improve the school's infrastructure and resources. In the past 1 year, for example, the sum of Kenya shillings 250,000 has been spent in the installation of water tanks, and also 400,000 on connection of water to the school, as well as another 150,000 on the tiling of the classrooms, and also 200,000 Kenya shillings, which was used for plastering the classrooms. Mr. Speaker, the accounts of the school are audited annually, and for this past year, the audit was concluded in April, and we are as yet to get the report, and I undertake to provide the report to the Member of Parliament once it is referred to me. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that I would like to state from the outset that indeed the ministry does not recruit non-teaching staff or public schools in the country, and according to Section 59P of the Basic Education Act 2013, it is the responsibility of the Board of Management to recruit non-teaching staff. As with all public sector employees, Board of Management are required by law to ensure that the recruitments are done in an open, transparent, and competitive manner. Through the county, our county and sub-county officers, we established that the school is yet to engage in a competitive recruitment of the staff, and therefore, Honorable Speaker, we have made a directive that the 7 individuals who are working on part-time basis be subjected to a competitive process, and the Board of Management has been able to form an interviewing panel which will be able to interview those who will be able to apply, and already an advert is out for those who will be interested to be recruited on a permanent basis, not as before, because the people who have been working there before are on a part-time basis. The last part of the question, Honorable Speaker, and this one I'm sure the honorable members of Parliament here are very much aware and conversant with, is that the Boards of Management do not receive and approve projects proposals from the Constituent Development Fund. According to Section 27 of the National Government Constituent Development Fund 2015, it is the responsibility of the CDF Committee to correct and deliberate on project proposals as made in each and every constituency. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, Regulation 11 of the National Government Constituent Development Fund Regulations 2016 is clear that the mandate of the Constituents Committee is to consider all project proposals from all wards in the constituency and any other project which the Constituents Committee might consider beneficial in any given financial year. And finally, the school has been able to make an application to the CDF board for funding for the perimeter wall of the school. So that is the answer I wish to submit for question 1.
Thank you, Minister. Mark Mwenje.
Mike.
There you are.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I thank the Minister, the Cabinet Secretary, for his comprehensive response. My only follow-up to the Cabinet Secretary is that we've had a problem in Nairobi, especially with the reconstitution of some of the school boards in our primary schools, because the county education, I think, board says they don't have sufficient funds, and you have some of these boards even with serving MCAs who have now been re-elected. So could the Cabinet Secretary kindly provide guidance on reconstitution of some of these school boards so that we can mitigate some of the issues that some of the new members of Parliament are facing, considering some were appointed by our predecessors? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, you can answer that.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. The honorable members are aware that the constitution of the committees, both in primary and secondary, we normally have 17 as the number, and the people who recommend those to serve in those particular committees, part of them are actually members of Parliament, because those representing the community interest are appointed or recommended by members of Parliament. And of course, there are also those who represent the parents, who the parents recommend. There are those who also represent the various judges who are recommended by the judges. As a ministry, we also find 17 to be a very high number, and in the coming recommendation, which will be recommending in this House, I think we are recommending that we reduce that number to a number that will be a little bit manageable, because it is a number that is so high and unmanageable, and sometimes the cost was unnecessarily high.
Thank you, Minister. Question 121 of 2023. The member for Samburu East, Jackson Lekutomontare, has written to the Speaker indicating that he has delegated Honorable Eli Letipila to ask the question for him. Is Eli here?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask a question on behalf of Honorable Jackson Lekutomontare, the MP for Samburu East, who is outside the country. His questions to the Cabinet Secretary are: 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of secondary schools in Samburu East constituency that have not been supplied with course books? The second question is: explain why students in some schools in Samburu East constituency complete their secondary school studies without accessing course books. That question is: state when the ministry will avail course books to the affected schools or provide money to the schools to purchase the books. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have indeed established that the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, there are 6 schools in Samburu East constituency which have not been supplied with the course books. The schools affected are as follows: Uasu Girls Secondary School, which was registered in 19 December 2018. Narere Boys Secondary School, which was also registered on the 22nd February 2021. Ngaroni Girls Secondary School, which was registered on 22nd March 2021. Seja Boys Secondary School, which was registered on the 22nd February 2021. Tipitoga Secondary School, which, Honorable Speaker, was registered on the 10th January 2019. Narasa Boys, which was registered on the 16th September 2020. Honorable Speaker, public secondary schools were initially supplied with textbooks in the year 2018. Therefore, new schools that were registered thereafter, that is 2018, have not been supplied with the textbooks. Additionally, there has been no supply to provide for increased enrollment in the schools that were initially supplied in the year 2018. This financial year, the ministry has retained a total of 378 Kenya shillings from the capitation funds provided for in each and every category, each and every runner, for purposes of replenishing the supplies. The replenishment will enable the provision of books to runners in schools that were registered after 2018, and also to schools whose enrollment has grown. And also the second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that indeed there has been no replacement of books in secondary schools since 2018, with the result that runners in newly registered schools have not been provided with the books. However, the ministry is in the process of undertaking a replacement to ensure that all schools are supplied with the books before the end of this term. Mr. Speaker, the affected schools will receive their books before the end of this term, and not only in Samburu, but there are so many other schools which are in this category, and we undertake that we will be able to provide the books out of the funds which have said the 378 per annum to all the schools countrywide. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Eli. Give the microphone to, there you are.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The supplementary question that I would like to ask the Cabinet Secretary is, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why there is shortage of food in both primary, junior secondary, and high schools of Samburu North constituency? For example, Bargoi Boys, Opiroi Mix, Nachola, Masikita Primary, and can he state which measures he's putting in place to urgently regularize the school feeding programs, which helps in keeping the pastoral children of Samburu North in schools? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Go ahead.
We are aware that we have a shortage of teachers, not only in the affected schools, but quite a number of our schools in each and every part of the country. And this administration, ever since the time we came in, we have been able to employ 36,000 new teachers, and we undertake that we will be able to employ almost an equal number in the next financial year. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that the school feeding program, government provides funds for 26 counties, particularly in the northern part of the country, the arid and semi-arid counties. Those are the schools and the areas that Parliament has been able to give us funds that we engage and provide school feeding programs to almost 2,000 of our runners in those particular areas.
Honorable members, I see the screen is full, but I don't know if it's full for this question. Omboko Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Related to the issue of food in schools,
Is the Cabinet Secretary aware, Honorable Speaker, that schools are on the verge of closing because of lack of food, especially the high schools? And if so, what measures is he undertaking to make sure that capitation is sent to our schools so that they don't close down? Currently, Honorable Speaker, school heads are negotiating with students on meals to jump and even forfeit. That can lead to unrest in our schools. So when is he planning to send capitation to schools to mitigate the issue of imminent closure of our schools? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Mama Zamzam.
Asante sana Bwana Spika, na mimi nina swali kwa waziri wa elimu. Napenda kuuliza, katika shule ya Likoni visual impaired, ambao ni wale ambao wana ulemavu wa macho, toka Januari hawajapata chakula, hawajapokea msaada wote kutoka kwa serikali kama kawaida. Na pia ningependa kuuliza pia Jomvu High School ambao ni Jomvu Girls imejengwa lakini haina perimeter wall na ni shule ya wasichana. Nataka nimuulize waziri amewapangia nini, manake wale ni watoto wa kike na ile ni hali tata. Mahali ambapo wako ni mahali ambapo kuna abiri wale watu wa bodaboda wako wengi na hawa watu wa transport wako wengi, kwa hivyo ni mahali pana shughuli nyingi, na wale watoto wamekaa wazi kabisa, hawana perimeter wall ambao ni ile mzingiro wa fence, na hawana pia maji ya kunywa borehole, na pia hawana wanahitaji muhabara nyingine, manake ile iliyoko ni ndogo wala haitoshi. Kama waziri wa elimu umewapangia nini shule hizi mbili? Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Cabinet Secretary.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to inform all the members of Parliament here that capitation funds, which are to the tune of 28 billion, the Ministry of National Treasury was supposed to have given us the funds before Friday last week, but there was a delay. And this morning, I've had an engagement with the Principal Secretary of National Treasury, because it's an issue that is not only concerning me, but the entire country. And I wish to report to the honorable members and the country as a whole that indeed he has confirmed that by tomorrow the funds will be in the ministry, and then thereafter we will be able to disperse the same to all our schools countrywide. And I hope that by Friday of this week, the undertaking I've been able now to get from the Treasury, because they have gotten the funds, is that our schools will be able to receive capitation funds. That is senior secondary schools, our junior secondary schools, plus our primary schools. We are sorry for the delay, but by the end of the week, the money should be in the accounts of those schools. The Member of Parliament has also been able to ask a question about the perimeter wall. Members of Parliament, you are aware that the amount of money we get in the form of infrastructure funds cannot be able to cater for each and every need of the various schools we have in the country. And I really thank the members of Parliament, because in partnership with your CDF funds, we are able to do quite a lot. I will invite the Member of Parliament to come over so that we can be able to discuss probably in the next financial year. We can be able to partner so that we see what CDF can be able to do and what we can be able to do as a ministry. Even water, as I said, Honorable Speaker, during the last time that I was here again, is that yes, the people who have the technical expertise and the knowledge is means of water, we only make a recommendation on the boreholes to be done in schools, and that is one other school that I will ask the Member of Parliament to come over so that we can be able to make the same recommendation to the means of water for treating of our water borehole. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Question 1, 2, 3. Member for Teso South, Mary Emase.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question arises from the confusion in the implementation of junior secondary school guidelines by the Ministry of Education. Honorable CS, I draw your attention to page 44 of your guidelines, guideline 8.6 of the guidelines on school meals. And I quote, all learners in the JSS junior secondary school shall be provided with nutritious school meals. 8.61 says that provision of school meals in junior secondary schools shall be the responsibility of the parents or guardians. And 8.62 says that in regard to 8.61, the junior secondary school leadership shall collaborate with the parents to ensure that the school meals meet the nutritional needs of all learners, including those with special needs and disability. 2, that there will be adherence to food storage and preparation standards.
Honorable Mary Emase, you are debating and not asking your question. The procedure is read the question as it appears on the order paper. I think you are reading something different.
The one in the order paper.
Question 1, 2, 3 of 2023 is radically different from what you are saying. Do you have it on the order paper?
I think I have a different order paper, Mr. Honorable Speaker. May I have?
Can somebody furnish the Honorable Emase with the supplementary order paper? Your question 1, 2, 3 of 2023.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The question is, could the Cabinet Secretary state the actions the Ministry is taking to address the contradiction in Guideline 8.61 of the Guidelines for Implementation of Junior Secondary School Education, which states that provision of school meals in junior secondary school will be the responsibility of parents or guardians, and Guideline 8.63 requiring the leadership of junior secondary school to ensure that no learner drops out of school as a result of failure to pay the lunch program fee. 2, could the Cabinet Secretary outline measures in place to ensure that children from needy backgrounds whose parents or guardians cannot afford lunch fee program remain in school and enjoy nutritious meals, considering that guideline number 8.6 obligates the leadership of junior secondary schools to ensure that no child drops out of school as a result of failure to pay lunch fees, which in most schools is nearly Kenya shillings 15,000. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Indeed, there is no contradiction because 861 clearly states that providing lunch in our schools, particularly primary and the junior secondary, is the responsibility of the parents. What normally happens, Honorable Speaker, is that the parents, the Board of Management convenes a meeting comprising of the parents of that particular school. And after discussing and agreeing on a figure, if it is 500, if it is 1,000, whatever figure that each and every parent is supposed to pay towards provision of lunch to their young ones, then they pay that. And we say, even those who don't pay because it's not mandatory, it's optional. We say it cannot be mandatory, it is optional. And even those who are not able to pay, because there are parents who say, yes, me, I'm not going to pay, I will be able to provide food such that my child can be able to carry their food from home to school. When the others are enjoying the school meal, he has carried the food from home. All, there are a few, because as I've gone around the country, sometimes I've had the opportunity of eating lunch with these young ones. in a number of schools that I want to. Indeed, there are those who have not been able to pay. But what is normally done in these schools, even those who have not paid, Honorable Speaker, you find they are also served, they are actually accommodated in that arrangement. One good thing that happens, Honorable Speaker, is that the number which is not able to pay is not that big. You will get about 85% of the parents have paid, such that the number which has not paid is probably 15%, so they are also carried along in this arrangement, and therefore, when food is being served, they are also served along with the others. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I can't tell honorable members whether those of you on requests Irene Mayaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, earlier the Cabinet Secretary has confirmed to us that the funds are going to start to go to school from tomorrow. But my question is, given the fact that the initial capitation was already below budget, what is the Cabinet Minister going to do to cushion schools now that, especially yesterday, we did get information that the price of commodities has shot up, especially for the basic commodities. So what I want to know from the CS is what plans does he have to ensure that he cushions schools from this, given the fact that the budget is already, capitation is already below budget. Thank you.
Martha Wangari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My follow-up question then is on what the CS has answered in the issue matters capitation, and the money that finally goes to the schools, link that with the books and the printing that has now become centralized. My question is there any plan by the ministry to decentralize the printing of books? Because sometimes you have 100 kids and there are 200 books of the same subject, Mr. Speaker. And with the CBC model, is there a plan in the future to ensure that books can be handed down to siblings, Mr. Speaker? Because now we have children just dealing with one child and you cannot hand over that book down to the next child. So what is the plan in terms of ensuring that every child has an access to a book and we don't have to wait, the schools can be able to do it without waiting for the capitation? Thank you.
Let me give Anton Oloch.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I also want to ask a supplementary question here in relation to what the Minister has said in relation to school feeding program, and to seek guidance from the Minister or the Cabinet Secretary on what steps the Ministry is taking to ensure that informal settlements, and in particular vulnerable informal settlements like Mathare constituency, where majority of the children who go to the public schools come from vulnerable families, have access to free school feeding programs, because even the nominal fee that is charged by the school is not something that they can afford. But while I'm on my feet, and with your permission, Honorable Speaker, I would like to ask a question in relation to, as a follow-up to that question number 120 that was asked by Honorable Mwenje, in relation to the income generating activity of Umoja 1 primary school. Cabinet Secretary, what is the legal or regulatory framework that underpins schools involving or engaging in A&A? And I'm saying things against the background of a previous ban by the ministry for schools to hire school buses, so that you avoid conflict of interest and you avoid schools engaging into activities that they may take them away from their core business. What is the legal and regulatory framework underpinning A&I by schools? Thank you.
Cabinet Secretary.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. One is that the price of foodstuffs, Honorable Speaker, one clarification I would like to make. Indeed, the other day, the price of rice, in January, we were paying last year we paid 4,500. And then later on, sometime this year, the supply branch kind of increased the price from 4,500 to 7,200. But when we went to the market, indeed, we found the price was still 4,500 a bag of rice, 50 kg. So even now, we are insisting that where schools cannot be able to get the prices at 4,500 per bag of rice, or even beans, they procure from KNTC. And they also compare the prices they are getting out in the market with what we have in our stores in the KNTC, because sometimes these figures that are being given by schools might not conform with what we have at the market prices when you go out to the market, and particularly when they are competitive. The second question, Honourable Speaker, from the Honourable Member of Parliament from Gilgil, is that way back 2017, you remember, Honourable Members, the kind of education reform that were undertaken. One such reform that was undertaken by government and the Ministry of Education was on the issue of textbooks. Because there before, government used to give money to the various secondary schools and primary schools to purchase textbooks, and unfortunately, it was not being done. The ratio of students' textbooks was such that you find 10 students sharing one textbook. But ever since the time the government changed the system such that it was centralized and the books are purchased from Nairobi and given to the schools, the ratio in schools, and you can be able to confirm this from your respective schools in the constituencies, is almost 1-to-1. And we have said we replace the textbooks every after 4 years. Like now they were given 2018, and I think we are in the process of making sure that we supply, because after 4 years you find they have been worn out and they require a replacement. So as of now, we think out of the research that was done and the report given, the system which is being used now is much better, because almost each and every student in our schools has access to textbooks. And unless probably we carry out another research in order to be able to centralize, because the one we were using before was not working. Honourable Speaker, as I said, the number of counties that we are giving school feeding program are 26. It is right, it is correct, because we have very, very poor people in these informal settlements in Nairobi and other major towns in this country, and we are engaging with development partners like one who is now going to come to Nairobi from the Children Investment Fund. It's a UK company, and I think they are going to provide 1.6 billion, which we will be able to cooperate with the County of Nairobi in order to provide food to some of the informal settlements in Nairobi. And we are also trying to make the same efforts in other informal settlements in other towns of this country, such that once we access funds, then we should be able also to provide food to those particular informal settlements. Finally, on A, it's true that schools sometimes generate some income, those who have parcels, those who have a swimming pool like the one I said, and as of now the guidelines we have issued, Honourable Speaker, is that we have Board of Management, and it is the Board of Management which is responsible for managing those funds, and when you consider the amount of money coming from those activities, they are not so big as such. So some of the funds that they get as A are also used for purposes of school activities within their given schools. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. Honorable Aduma Owor.
Thank you, Mr.
Minister,
Speaker.
we had skipped that question. You can, the question of Aduma Owor, 122. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is directed to the Cabinet Secretary to explain the actions being taken by the Ministry to meet acts of nepotism, mismanagement, violations, and the Ministry's guidelines relating to acquisition and disposal of school assets, as well as recruitment of non-teaching and casual staff in schools across the country. Thank you.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. On the disposal of assets, schools are public entities in terms of the Public Procurement and the Assets Disposal Act 2015 and the Public Finance Management Act 2012. So all the requirements as given in the two acts apply also to the schools, and they are supposed to adhere to the requirements of the statutes on the disposal of school assets. In addition to the provision of the law, the Ministry of Education has also issued guidelines and manuals to guide the disposal of assets, and such assets include unserviceable buses and other vehicles, ICT equipment like computers and printers, farm equipment and furniture. For primary schools, for example, the Ministry developed the Financial Management Manual 2017. The manual outlines the relevant provisions of the law on asset disposal and provides a clear step-by-step process for disposing of school assets. This is as indicated in Unit 6 of the manual. Honorable Speaker, the Basic Education Act 2013 mandates the Board of Management with the responsibility of administering the resources of our school, and in this regard, the Ministry's manual on disposal of all these items is normally approved by the school management boards. The methods of disposal are as outlined in Section 165 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015. This includes sale by public tender, sale by public auction, trade-ins, and the transfer to another public entity. To ensure compliance with the law and the Ministry's guidelines, every school is audited at least annually by the Ministry's School Audit Directorate, as well as the Office of the Auditor General. The Ministry's field officers also undertake regular inspections of schools in order to ensure compliance. Honorable Speaker, cases where there might be non-compliance, of course, once they come to our notice, we make sure that the necessary remedial action is taken. In respect to the recruitment of non-teaching staff, the Basic Education Act 2013 provides that the Board of Management shall recruit, employ, and remunerate non-teaching staff. As public entities, the Boards of Management are subject to the values and the principles of public service as outlined in Article 232 of the Constitution and the Public Service on the Values and the Principles Act. These values and principles include ethnic and gender inclusion, merit and open and competitive recruitment. The recruitment undertaken by the boards are subjected to audit by the Ministry of Schools Audit Directorate as well as the Office of the Auditor General. Cases of non-compliance, if identified, then the necessary appropriate action is taken, Mr. Speaker, and I welcome any reports of such violations so that my office can be able to undertake the necessary action. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Aduma, are you satisfied?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to look at the question, I realized that the question was limited to rather most of the movable assets and did not address the issue of the questions of immovable assets like title deeds, which I realize it is not clear whether the title deeds of most schools are in the hands of the ministry or they are in the hands of the communities or the sponsors of the various schools. Mr. Speaker, I also realize that when we talk about the issue of mismanagement, there are also grants which are meant for special schools. Most of these grants have not been dispersed and schools are suffering. So that is also key. I also observed that there's also the issue of mismanagement in skilled staffing. There's the perception that many of the good principals are poached to some of the schools which are undeserving. And I realized that I had 3 cases in point where the well-performing head teacher of Yala High School was poached and had difficulties landing where he was posted. I also realized that the standards in Miranda High School have been on a downward trend after the head teacher, then Mr. Boas, was removed. We've also have the question of Sagongo High School, where the head teacher was blocked when he was posted elsewhere. So I know the Cabinet Secretary is equal to task. He has the power and the authority, and I trust he'll be able to address that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Duma, that is a complimentary statement other than question. Minister, you can note that and deal with it. Jared Okello, I see you on the screen.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and on equal footing, I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary for Education for coming in to address some of our concerns. Honorable Speaker, I was home during the recess, and I managed to walk around my constituency. And the junior secondary school, to a larger extent, paint a very grim picture. Honorable Speaker, we are alive to the fact that the school classrooms were actually built in high schools. But now the regime came into office and chose to retain our children within the existing primary schools, Honorable Speaker. Whereas we do not have the capacity to physically remove those classrooms from high schools and plug them into primary schools, I would want to know whether there is any plan to have additional classrooms to junior secondary schools within the primary schools where they exist, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, again, we do have lots of these junior secondary schools strewn all over, but you realize that only one teacher is plugged to a junior secondary school. They undertake 14 subjects, which are compulsory, and probably around 8 elective subjects, Honorable Speaker. Even when you're a genius, it is common knowledge that you cannot handle 22 subjects, Honorable Speaker. So what plans do the ministry have to add additional junior secondary school teachers to augment the shortfall that does exist, Honorable Speaker? And finally, Honorable Speaker, just in brief, Honorable Speaker, the junior secondary schools charge 11,000 shillings going towards lunches for to our children. Honorable Speaker, I do not know whether the ministry came up with this figure, 11,000 shillings for lunches. But again, these are the same children who were last year walking back to their homes and coming back to school in the afternoon. So what has so changed that our parents have to dig deep into their pockets to get 11,000 shillings to assist the lunch program? And I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, that question by Jared Okello actually falls under the next questions by Mushira and Onchoke. So you can put it on hold. You'll answer it when we get there. Next, question 124. Member for Machakos County, Mama Joyce Kamene.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question to the Cabinet Secretary. The first one. Could the Cabinet Secretary state the amount of money that the ministry has received towards the provision of sanitary pads to the school girls each financial year from 2017 to 2018 up to 2022 to 2023. Part 2, explain the criteria, if any, used by the ministry in distributing the allocations stated above among the counties and specify how much Machakos County received in each of the financial years.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. In the financial year 2017-2018 and the 2018-2019, the Ministry of Education did not receive any money towards the provision of sanitary pads to our girls in our schools. The program was actually then domiciled in the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and the Youth at that particular time. I was not able to get the figures from that ministry, but given time, because we have a one government approach, I can't be able to get the figures. But in the year 2019-2022 financial year, the Ministry of Education received a total, up to 2022, the Ministry of Education has received a total of 1,585,816,000 for this program. The breakdown for financial year is as follows, Honorable Chairperson and members. 2019-2020, we received 375 million. 2020-2021, we received a total of 470,480,000. And 2021-2022, Honorable Chairperson, we received 270,480,000. 2022-2023, we received a total of 470 million. So the total received is as given 1,585,816,000. And the criteria we use in distributing the sanitary pads to the various counties in the country is following the enrollment of girls in grade 6, 7, and 8, because it is that particular age which we consider the girls need the sanitary towels. I have given a breakdown, Honorable Chairperson, of the quantities given out in terms of packets to each and every sub-county in Machakos, and also given each and every year the way those particular quantities were given to each and every sub-county in Machakos. And I think the honorable members can be able to look at the breakdown because we have given as per each and every sub-county in Machakos. And not only Machakos, this information is also available, what we have been able to give out as a ministry for each and every county in this country. Honorable Speaker, sir, so we have also limited this to public schools only, because we don't give sanitary pads to private schools, we only give to public schools. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Joyce Kamene.
Mr. Speaker, as much as I would like to thank the CS for his answers, but there still leaves a lot to be desired, because as women reps, we get a lot of calls from these schools. And he has just stated that they supply to the primary schools. But we do have public secondary schools where we know we have so many vulnerable girls that are attending schools. What is the ministry doing about those girls? The criteria they use leave a lot to be desired. They ought to improve, because we get a lot of questions. Where are sanitary towels? And we are talking about 470 million. Where is this money going to surely? I wish you'd see the systems so that we can understand why do some schools not get sanitary towels. Thank you.
Babo Wino.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. First, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Cabinet Secretary for Education, who is a very good friend of mine and was a former colleague, and also a family friend, because the son was my lecturer at the University of Nairobi School of Law. Now, Mr. Speaker, my question is about what's currently happening in public primary schools, which is very, very sad, Mr. Speaker. You find that the children, the learners, are being sent away from school because of certain materials which are required from these learners. For example, they are told that they can't go to school without paying money for desks and other costs. As we speak, there's a primary school called Edelwell Primary School in Embakasi East constituency that has sent away 65 learners who can't go to school because the administration is demanding 1,500. And I know that this is affecting the whole country. So if public primary schools are meant to be free, why are we charging these learners of these monies? Number two, the CBC, the competency-based curriculum, which has now become the incompetency-based curriculum. The Cabinet Secretary, can we do away with this system? Because we are wasting our children. They are acting as a control experiment which is going to backfire. You find, Mr. Speaker, that in a primary school, the junior secondary school, one teacher who is trained at the university is supposed to handle a maximum of 2 subjects. But at the junior secondary school, one teacher is handling a maximum of between 8 to 10 subjects. Mr. Speaker, how viable is it for a teacher to prepare for a subject that he will teach the following day? If a teacher is supposed to teach 8 subjects, then a teacher needs 8 hours to prepare for the subject. It means that whatever is being impacted, the knowledge that is being impacted on our learners is equivalent or congruent to liquid intelligence. So, Mr. Speaker, let us not waste our children, and to the Cabinet Secretary, please let us do away with CBC.
What
it is wasting us.
Question? You are making a statement.
Could we do away with the CBC? Thank you.
Minister, answer those 2.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members. Members, as you are aware, the funds given to us in the form of purchase of sanitary pads have given the breakdown each and every year. The money is not enough as much as we would like to cover our secondary schools. Of course, there is need. And this particular function, there is an engagement for us to transfer the funds either to the Ministry of Gender or to the Women Rep. They are aware about the conversation, but I think the question is the amount of funds available for this function is not enough, and it is because of that that we are able to limit ourselves to primary school girls and also secondary school. Of course, there is need. I know there are certain other agencies which have been giving sanitary pads, but we require to allocate more funds, and I will request the Parliament to allocate more funds so that we are able to cater for this need. I'm very categorical, members of Parliament, when it comes to matters to do with illegal levies. We have been able to give a directive as a ministry and as a government that tuition is covered by government, and it is something which is enshrined in the Constitution of this country, Article 53, and primary schools we give a total of 1,420, and no school, no principal, member of Parliament, kindly give me the information. I've already taken action in quite a number of other schools. Recently we had cases in Kirifi, we had cases I think in the other county where we have taken disciplinary action against those who were concerned, such that once this information is made available to us, that there is a school charging 1,500, then we will be able to move in immediately and take action. And even our deputy county directors of education, we are facilitating them so that they can be able to monitor, they can be able to go to each and every school, and in case there is such an irregularity, they take the necessary required action. Members, you know, we have been able to work this journey of CPC. We are now on grade 7. We are on junior secondary. It started way back in 2018, and I think as Kenyans, we have been able to discuss on the merits of CPC, such that we have to align ourselves with what is happening not only in the region, we have to align ourselves with the 21st century, and also what is happening internationally and globally. And even when the team that was set up by His Excellency the President, the Presidential Working Party, it went around the country, gathering views from many people in the 47 counties. It came here to Parliament, and the key stakeholders were also engaged in this discussion. And you know, the percentage of Kenyans who said, yes, we have few challenges which we can be able to mitigate as a country, but we cannot be able to go back. Let us move on with the CPC. Actually, 68% of the Kenyans, according to that report, said we continue with CPC. There was 15% who said we think we should be able to go back to the 844 system. And there were others who were, of course, in between, but the greater percentage of Kenyans, including experts, said yes, this is the best system. We have few challenges which we will be able to mitigate on, and I would like to assure the members that actually, apart from the teachers we posted, there are also so many qualified teachers, because we have over 75,000 teachers who are graduates in primary schools, and we have upgraded those teachers to also teach in junior secondary schools. So the situation is not as bad as we think. There's a lot of improvement and a lot of good things, and moving forward, we are also mitigating on some of these challenges. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Women Rep Kilifi.
Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka kuzungumzia kuhusu sodo. Mheshimiwa Spika, sodo ni sanitary towels.
Unazungumzia au unauliza swali?
Nataka kumuuliza swali waziri. Mpango huu wa sodo ni mambo ya kike, na huu mpango ulikuwa kwa wakilishi wa kike wa hii nchi, majimbo 47. Hii pesa Mheshimiwa Joyce Kamene ametaja hapa, milioni 470, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni pesa nyingi sana kutumia kwa mradi. Hii pesa ikipewa milioni 10 kila mwakilishi wa kike ndani ya Kenya hii, ni pesa nyingi za kugawa sodo kwa kila shule katika Kenya nzima. Hii wizara haiwezani na hii kazi. Mimi ndani ya Kilifi ndo nagawanya sodo katika shule. Shule hizi ni za primary, shule za msingi Mheshimiwa Spika, shule za secondary, college zile ndogo tunaita tertiary. Kuna wasichana wa maisha ya chini hawawezi kumudu pakti moja ya sodo. Waziri, tunakuomba ukutane na wakilishi wa kike wote ndani ya bunge hili, tukupe mfumo vipi utatumia hizi pesa milioni 470, milioni 10 kwa kila jimbo. Sisi tutaweza kuendeleza huu mradi vizuri. Wewe ufatane na haya mambo ya elimu huko kwengine, haya mambo ya sodo ya kike tuwachie sisi. Ya pili kuhusu Mheshimiwa Spika, hii moja ni kuhusu CBC. Mheshimiwa Spika, nikwambie wazi, hakuna mzazi anataka huu mfumo. Tusidanganyane na hii percentage tunasikiza hapa. Huu mfumo umegharimu wazazi mfuko mkubwa sana. Mheshimiwa Spika, mzazi anunue viazi, watoto wakafundishwa kupika chips shule. Mzazi anunue nyama, mtoto aende akafundishwe nyama ya mbuzi ni ipi, nyama ya ng'ombe ni ipi. Wabebe kuku, wakaone kuku hai achinjwe. Nyama hizi hazirudi nyumbani, Mheshimiwa Spika. Samaki wakafundishwa samaki, majina wapikwa kule shule na watoto hawali. Mfumo huu umegharamisha wazazi pali pakubwa. Na ukilinganisha sasa, kwa sababu kuna ile ada ndani ya bajeti ya 3% kukatwa, mfumo huu hautaweza kudumishwa ndani ya Kenya hii. Mzazi akatwa 3%, iende kwa kujenga nyumba, kisha anunue kuku, viazi na nyama apeleke kwa mwalimu. Mfumo huu hatutaki. Waziri, tafuta mbinu nyingine. Asante.
Yes, Member Kimani. Minutes after this answer that, we go to the next question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think for the last 6 years, I've been a member of this House. The issue of provision of sanitary towels for our girls has always come up in every year. Why do we have to debate it every year? Why can we not have a comprehensive way of ensuring that our girls have sanitary towels in their schools?
Ask the Minister.
Honorable Speaker, I want the men in this House to think. If you bleeded for 3 days minimum every month, I think we'll all drop dead. We will all drop dead. And these girls go through this without menstrual education. They have to use unhygienic things like mattresses and blankets and all those bad things. And we still have to debate this every year? Mr. Speaker, I think we need to put the Cabinet Secretary to account. Let us have a comprehensive plan to make sure that every girl in this country, when they attain the age of puberty, they are supplied with sanitary towels. Mr. Speaker, we used to have condoms in toilets. So if you can provide condoms in toilets, why not provide sanitary towels for our girls? Why do they have to keep begging? Waziri, provide a solution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I agree with the concerns of the honorable members that indeed we require now funding and a better structure of distribution of sanitary pads so that they get to our girls. There is a discussion, and the 47 members of county women members of parliament are aware, where I am to transfer this function, and I think the two committees, Honorable Chair, were to make a decision, the committee on the budget and the committee on education, whether this money should be given to the Honorable county women members of parliament, or whether it should be given to the Ministry of Public Service and the Gender, and that is the responsibility of the two committees of this House, because we said the Committee on Education and the Committee on the Budget will be able to make that decision, and whatever decision they make is what we will be able to move ahead with, and we hope that it will be the best one as long as our girls are provided with sanitary towels. CPC, I was in Kirivi, the Member of Parliament is aware. Actually, I have been to Kirivi County 3 times, and I invite her to come when we are in Kirivi. The last I was in St. Thomas, girls, Honorable Member, you are aware, and I even had a meeting with the local leaders when I was in Kirifi. Even when I came to Buani University, kindly come over as we engage our people and we talk to the parents and the teachers concerning CPC. You can also be able to get the kind of information they have concerning CPC, where the teachers say, yes, we want to continue with this, but we require a little bit of capacity building, which we are able to do as a government. Thank you.
you, Minister. We'll go to question 125, but as we do so, I've been requested by the Honorable Babu Wino to recognize Lynn Alvaramlawi and Atifa Safi, Directors of Resources, Advocacy and Distribution, a Canadian international organization that advocates for gender and menstrual hygiene, in the gallery. Honorable Michael Muchira of Jororok.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 125 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of the number and percentage of pupils who transited to junior secondary schools and Form 1s respectively, and the number that is yet to report the number that is yet to report with respect to the 2023 academic year? And number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain measures that the Ministry has instituted to locate children who are yet to enroll for either junior secondary schools or Form 1 in order to meet 100% transition, considering that the basic education is an inviolable right to every child? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and honorable members. As at 26 May 2023, a total of 1,146,070 runners had reported to term 2 of 2023 to junior secondary schools all over the country, against an enrollment of 1,212,279 in grade 6. This translates to 93% transition rate. Those who had not transited at that date were 5.47%, which translates to 209 runners. A total number of 1,155,369 out of 1,206,974 runners are reported to Form 1 as at 26 May 2023, which translates to a transition rate of 96%. A total of 12,051 of the remaining runners reported to TVET institutions, while 4,709 repeated standard 8 crash. This leaves a total of 34,845 runners, representing 3%, who are yet to report to any institution of running. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker and honorable members, is that the high transition rate has been a result of various strategic measures that the ministry continues to implement, and of course we would like this to be 100%. Even the 3% which is out, we would like it to go up to 100%. Among the measures we have taken in order to ensure that we have a high transition rate is that we have been spearheading a multi-agency approach team in following the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, and also including the honorable members here, to ensure that all our runners transit to their respective levels of basic education. We have done this, Honorable Speaker, using the grassroots approach to identify and locate the runners who don't report to school in time and ensure that they resume their studies. And as I've said, the chiefs, assistant chiefs, have been very, very helpful in this. We have done a mopping up exercise to ensure that we encourage 100% transition, and we have also issued guidelines which are designed to facilitate the 100% transition, which include the following: operationalization of our day wings in established boarding primary schools in urban setups and densely populated areas. We have also been able to allow junior secondary schools within a proximity of 6 to 10 kilometers apart to operationalize shared school transport to ease access to runners and support a day schooling. We have encouraged the establishment of low-cost boarding schools in areas with highly scattered settlements or pastoralist communities where runners have the risk of disability and others subject to availability of funds. We have also been implementing affirmative action in geographically expansive areas, low density and insecurity-prone areas to allow primary schools that lack the requisite enrollment and the infrastructural capacity to domicile junior secondary schools. And as well, directing our runners to be excluded from school uniform, because we said it's not mandatory that we have the new uniform when they transition to another level. The capitation rate members are aware. In the junior secondary school, we set it at 15,000 and 42, and also in senior secondary school, we set it at 22,240, and also running materials, particularly textbooks, we have achieved a ratio, apart from few areas, of 1-to-1 ratio in provision of textbooks, and also providing school feeding program in order to ensure that those, particularly in arid and semi-arid areas, are able to access school. So, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Speaker, sir, those are some of the measures we have taken, and those are the numbers that we have so far who have transitioned the 2 levels in our basic education. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was only adding to what Honorable Member from Moro had said about the sanitary pads. When he talked about condoms, I wanted just to clarify that condoms are voluntary, but when it comes to menstrual, we were born with it and we live that way. Thank you.
Question time. You are out of order.
I was just...
You are out of order. You can approach Honorable Kimana and lecture him on that. John Mutunga.
Honourable Speaker, I rise to congratulate the CS Education for the good work he's doing. But Honourable Speaker, all the members here agree with me that the ministry is facing a very difficult time to implement this new education system. Honourable Speaker, I happen to be involved in making sure that it happens because I'm an investor in education. But I can assure you that I do not know in this country who is clear. And I would like the Honourable CS to tell us the extent to which the ministry is clear on the expected products from this system, where they are going to go, the kind of professionals we are going to produce, and what we shall do with the others. Honourable Speaker, maybe that you can tell us that, because we all seem to be guiding our children into something we are not clear as a country. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Nicholas Turkana East.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this chance to thank the CS and also to ask this question on each of the AFTAM. Honorable Speaker, the AFTAM has become mandatory in our education calendar. My question is, what added advantage is the AFTAM getting to adding to our learners in this country? Because, Mr. Speaker, you find a kid who comes from Turkana and he or she is schooling in Mombasa County is given 3 days to go for after. All the way from Mombasa to Turkana East, and it is 3 days. And from Turkana to Mombasa, you can travel for 3 days. That is one way. Coming back 3 days. That's total of 6 days. How fast will this child travel from Mombasa to Turkana for this half term? This half term has become very expensive to the parents, and parents go, kids go to school, they come back. Some of them just, the half term get them on the way, and they go back without even reaching home. It is even becoming dangerous to our learners, because some of our learners meet even strangers on the way back home in the name of the half term. So can the CS clarify what the half term is adding to the education of our learners in this country, both in primary school and secondary schools? Thank you, Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Hold, Minister, sorry. Emmanuel Wangwe, you'll be the last on this.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to appreciate the Cabinet Secretary for the good work he has done, and so far wish him well. Honorable Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary has put it very clear that there is very good progress in terms of 100% transition, but my concern, Honorable Speaker, is how to retain the 100% transition into the secondary schools. And especially, Honorable Speaker, I wish the Cabinet Secretary to clarify on what his ministry is doing so far, especially to the 2021 Form 1 students under the program Elimu Scholarship Program, where, Honorable Speaker, the Jomo Kenyatta Foundation is here to remit the funds as we speak today. All the students who went into the Form 1 secondary school 2023 under that program, through his ministry, Honorable Speaker, are yet to receive payment. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary, you can answer those.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to assure my friend, the Honorable Mutunga, that CPC, after the lower level, that is the junior secondary, they transition to senior secondary, where there are 3 pathways. The 3 pathways, one is STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The second other pathway is social sciences, also commonly known as humanities. The third pathway, Honorable Speaker, is on sports, visual, and performing art. Those who are good in that area will also be able to find an opportunity to pursue their talents in that particular area. And as we said, this is a system with a proper value system which will be able to inculcate certain values to our young people, and also get the kind of competencies and skills which have not been available, and they will be able to compete favorably with the rest of the world, and it is the best way to go. So it is not an end in itself. We will be able to move it, and we are preparing up to university level, such that when the year comes for them to transition to universities, our universities will be well prepared. Half term, from the time you and me were in school, there used to be half term, because a term goes about 90 to 100 days. Emotionally, if you subject these people continuously without giving them a break, particularly in secondary schools, senior secondary schools, it also gets us into certain other problems, like strikes in schools, some even getting into certain other activities. So emotionally, it stabilizes them when they get probably 3-4 days half term, a break, and it is normally optional, such that there are those who come from far, who can be able to prefer to remain in school. So it doesn't have to mean that each and every one of them has to go. We have been getting the support, RIM scholarships, affecting about 12,000 of our Kenyans, those who come from poor backgrounds. We delayed in getting the funds from the various agencies, various donors, but I think from 2 weeks ago, we have now been able to get the funds, and those who were beneficiaries, we have been able to disperse the funds to the various schools where they joined for their secondary school education, and we will be able to continue with the program because those who are supporting this program are actually supportive of it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, I think the issue of the member for Turkana is whether it is prudent for a child schooling in a national school in Mombasa to be late to go home for half-term for 3 days, when it takes 3 days to travel, 3 days to come back. I think the policy issue should be whether you can let such children remain in schools during that half-term, as those who can go home can go. Nicholas, isn't that your issue? Yes, Minister.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Actually,
as a parent, and I'm sure and as a leader, you understand that children from very poor families who are brilliant and go to national schools travel across the country. And to tell them to go to half-term for 3 days is actually not very reasonable.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. That's why I said it is actually optional, such that not each and every one of those students goes for half-term. They can opt to remain. Some, like the case he has said, if it is a child for Turkana who is in Mombasa, unless the parents are of a category where they are able, and during that particular time they can be able to go to Mombasa such that they take the child from school. If it is the child traveling all the way, it will not be able to make sense, and it's an issue which I agree with, that we should be able to take up so that those ones who don't have that kind of arrangement can be able to remain in school during that particular time, because we have also that option.
Thank you. Member for Bonchari, Charles Onchoke.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to take the opportunity to appreciate the Cabinet Secretary and his team for appearing and take our questions. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a status report on the construction of classrooms under the competency-based curriculum phase 2 for the following 10 schools in the Bonchari constituency that were identified in 2022 to host junior secondary schools? 1, Bishop Charles Mugendi, Nyamukenye, Botoro Evangelical Lutheran Church of Kenya, Ekerubo, Eterio Girls, St. Andrews Mogumo, St. Anne's Nyangoge, St. Charles Rwanga Gesero, St. Francis Nyasagati, St. Peter Suneka, and St. Vincent Omwari. 2, state when the construction of classrooms in Botoro, Ekerubo, and Mogumo secondary schools that were to be ready for use in January 2023 will commence, and state when the ministry will pay the contractors awarded tenders to construct classrooms in the 7 secondary schools above where works are being completed. And 3, outline the plans that the ministry has put in place to construct adequate classrooms for junior secondary schools in the Bonchari constituency in order to ease congestion that is adversely affecting learning, and specify clear timelines for the same. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This is something again affecting each and every member of Parliament.
Yes, 1 minute. Yes, Donya, what's the problem?
I'm the joyrider.
You are?
I had said that.
Pardon?
Joyrider.
Yeah, but the joyrider comes after the question has been answered.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker and honorable members. This is one other thing that affects each and every member of parliament in this house, because members, as you will remember, we had phase 1 of this program that covered each and every one of your constituencies, and a total of 7,600,000,062 million was utilized in phase 1, which was done between, I think, 2020, 2021, and a total number of 9,721 classrooms in secondary schools were built. And those ones are complete, and the payments have been done. We don't have anything pending. In the phase 2, which the honorable member for Bonchari has been able to raise a question, apart from his area, where a total of 12 million is supposed to be used for the classrooms that were given in Bonchari. Countrywide, the total number of classrooms which are supposed to be done are 6,495, out of which the contractors who have been contracted to do those classrooms are 6,371 contractors. That is phase 2. The total cost of phase 2 is 2,542,000,000, and a number of those classrooms are complete. A few are not complete, and we are hoping that before the end of the financial year, they should be complete. For Bonchari, the status is as given in the table. Botoro secondary is 80% complete. Kerubo is about 90% complete. St. Andrews Mugumo is at one classroom is complete, and the other one is 75% complete. St. Anne's Nyangoge, 2 classrooms are complete. St. Charles Ruanga Gesero is complete, the 1 classroom. St. Francis Nyasagati is complete. St. Peter Suneka is complete. And St. Vincent Umari is also complete. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that we are expecting that the schools will be completed before 30th June, and there are 7 schools which have been completed. The ministry is supposed to pay a total of 12,611,521. Of course, you are aware the total cost of a classroom, it was being constructed at a cost of 708,221. And we are here to pay the contractors, not only for Bonchari, but even in other constituencies. We are expecting that the National Treasury will be able to give us the 2.5 billion so that we are able to make payment before the end of the financial year, so that it is not carried over as a pending bill. The third part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that there are 56 junior secondary schools in the Bonchari constituency with a total of 3,899 runners. Generally, each of the schools has 1 classroom for grade 7 learners, and the number of classrooms where we experience a shortage is 22 classrooms. And I request again, Honorable Speaker, that we will be able to partner with the members of Parliament. In this, we are making an engagement with the World Bank. Hopefully, we should be able to get the funds where we'll be able to do integrated resource centers and also do sanitation facilities in some of the schools. But again, as you access your CDF funds, because your shortage in your constituency is only 22 classrooms, and I hope that we should be able to partner. You do part of it, and probably once we access funds, we can also be able to do a few. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Tonya, now you can joyride.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You find out that in junior secondary school, they have a new syllabus, they have new teachers, as much as they are not enough. They too have a new uniform. My question to Waziri is the ministry having any plans of having a new administration block for junior secondary school learners? To conclude with the issue of sanitary pads, Mr. Speaker, I would wish the CS to clarify. He told us that as members, we consider that budget. When we consider that budget, are the sanitary pads still going to be issued through the Ministry of Education, or they will be brought back to us as women members of Parliament? Thank you.
Gideon Ochanda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when the CS is giving us these details in terms of what was done in the name of classrooms, all of them were done in secondary schools. Where we are now, the grade 7 are still in primary schools. So it means that their infrastructure that is basically not in use. So can the CS tell us in terms of projection, are we seeing grade 7 and 8 getting back to primary school, or are we seeing grade 7 and 8 joining the secondary schools where the infrastructure is as at now? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sitting next to Nicholas, I can't see you clearly, Honorable Member. You are honorable. Can you give him the microphone? Honorable.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My name is Honorable Protas Akuja, MP for Loima constituency, Turkana County.
I know you. Sorry,
yes.
You're sitting so far.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question to the CS for Minister of Education is regarding the issue of junior secondary school, and this is specifically on ASAL areas. ASAL areas, JSS is suffering from many problems. You find that in those areas, one teacher is posted to one junior secondary school, and this teacher teaches 14 subjects, and the same teacher is the principal of that particular school. You wonder what time this teacher manages the school and what time he teaches this particular school. And now the question is, does the ministry have any plan to deploy more teachers to this junior secondary school? And secondly, the issue of laboratories. I'm told the CBC is centered on practical science practicals, and this junior secondary school do not have these laboratories. So does the ministry have any plan to construct laboratories in these junior secondary schools to avoid gaps? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, you can answer those three.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. If I start with the last question, I want to assure members, because we are aware that indeed junior secondary schools require laboratories, because we are emphasizing on STEM sciences, and that's why we are engaging, as I said, the World Bank. And our engagement, we hope in another 4 months, they should be concluded. And out of the funds that we are accessing from World Bank, we should be able to do at least 40% of the total requirement of laboratories countrywide. And progressively, we will be able to mitigate on this infrastructural requirement of laboratories. As areas, we are aware, and if Honorable Speaker, the member can be able to confirm the numbers that were given to certain areas, particularly during the recruitment of teachers. In nursery areas, we gave more, and I think we will be able to continue doing that until such a time that we make sure we are able to alleviate on this program of teacher shortage. I would like, probably quietly, the Member of Parliament to share, because I've gone to a number of these schools, I've gone to a number of these areas, including ASAR areas. We have been to Turukana, we went to a number of junior secondary schools, Marsabit, Wajir, and all those areas. And I've not been to a school where I find one single teacher teaching 14 subjects. And kindly, probably you can come to the office we share, because there might be those isolated cases which we require to give consideration to. So that one, Honorable Member, kindly let us engage so that we can be able to get a remedial measure on that. Classrooms in secondary schools, Honorable Speaker, I want to make it very clear here that indeed during this particular time we had a very severe shortage of classrooms in our secondary schools. So even the number of classrooms that have been built in secondary schools are still not enough, because if you go to each and every one of these secondary schools, still they require more classrooms. So it's not that they are not being used. Actually, a number of them are being used up to capacity, and even as we move forward, we are looking into a situation where we require to build more classrooms. There is no single school where we build classrooms which are not being used as of now. New teachers, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, as we move forward, I have made an undertaking that we will be able to recruit more in the coming years as this August House allocates us the necessary funds to do so, because we are aware that indeed we don't have enough teachers in a number of our schools. A new administration block for junior secondary school, we have issued guidelines for now. That will be another expense where honorable members will be able to agree with me, the ministry, that we don't have such funds. That is why we said both primary school and the junior secondary school, we have the same kind of administration as of now. The only thing we have changed a little bit is that they have separate school accounts. The junior secondary school operates a separate account from the primary school. But the principal, as of now, we have one principal. As we move ahead, we might change where we have a separate administration for the junior secondary and also for the primary. Otherwise, as of now, it is one principal, one administration block for now, and also, but separate accounts. We have also the board of management. We have one set which is the 17 out of the 17. We have one set which is in charge of the accounts of the junior secondary school, and another one in charge of the primary schools. Sanitary parts, I think I've made an undertaking that we have had a discussion with the members of parliament, particularly the county members of parliament, where my member of parliament is also one of them. And once the committee of parliament, the committee of budget, and the committee of education makes a decision, that is exactly what we have to do. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Edwin Mugo. Sorry, yes, Dr. Nyikal? CS, let's take one from Dr. Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for making me a third joyrider. But, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate what our former colleague is doing and how complex the work is. But in reality, if you spend time, this time we were on recess and went around the constituencies, we are having a very hard start. The conditions are actually worse than what we are saying. In terms of teachers, infrastructure for classrooms, now laboratories. So my question to the CS is, can we have in every constituency what the plans are for the number of junior secondaries that are there this time, and those ones we can count, the ones that are coming next year, and 2, can we have the number of classrooms that are actually expected in the junior secondary, and 3, are we going to have laboratories or workshops in junior secondary? That one, there is no clarity whether we are going to have laboratories or workshops. And whatever it is, can we also have that? So that when we plan with CDF, we actually fall in place with your sub-county directors of education, so that there is some harmony on how we use our CDF to support the junior secondary program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Waziri.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nyikar. We have made it clear that we require laboratories in the junior secondary schools, and that's why we are having the engagement with World Bank, and also requesting the honorable members of parliament in your respective constituencies to prioritize constructing laboratories, because what we will do this coming financial year is 40% of what is required. So in this coming financial year, from the ministry side, we will be able to do the 40%, and probably the other financial year progressively as we proceed, we will also be able to do some kind of percentage. And I hope once you also access the CDF funds, you will be able to do some laboratories within your areas. Second is that the classrooms in junior secondary schools, you know, Honorable Speaker, we domiciled the existing primary schools to be junior secondary schools. And in those particular schools, we had class 7, we had class 8. So it is only that there are a few primary schools which did not qualify to be junior secondary schools, and hence the pupils in that particular school go to a nearby school. So the experience, the classroom shortage we have is not as big as such, because we had existing classrooms, because out of the 28,000 primary schools, it's only about 5,000 that did not qualify to be junior secondary schools. But again, we have a report from each and every sub-county, from our sub-county directors, and moving forward, I think we should be able to give you this report we share, and we see what we can be able to do from the point of view of the ministry, and from the CDF, what you can be able to do in your areas, because we also have a report on each and every sub-county indicating the shortage we have in terms of classrooms, like the example of Bonchari, which I gave. In the entire sub-county, the shortage we have is 22 classrooms. So in each and every of your sub-counties, we can also be able to provide that information, so that you know the shortage you have. As we move forward, you can also be able to provide from your respective CDF funds. As areas, Honorable Speaker, I think I made a commitment that we are doing something about as areas, particularly also giving more funds to Rukana. The other day we gave 100 million, where we are expanding the existing low-cost boarding schools. We are having one in Laikipia, which the Honorable Member Laikipia North, through sponsors and other CDF funds. We are also opening a boarding school, which we will support as government, and I think we will be able to assist as much as possible those areas that are us areas. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Edwin Mugo, member for Mathioya.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 127/2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary, 1, explain why there is a delay in the distribution of books flagged off on January 27, 2023, for grade 7 junior secondary school learners in public schools, noting that the books ought to have been distributed by February 17, 2023. 2, provide a report detailing the capitation grant received towards purchase of the textbooks and the actual amount spent on the purchase of textbooks in public secondary schools across the country. 3, indicate the strategies the ministry has put in place, if any, to address the challenges faced by the National Education Management Information System, NEMIS, expounding on the issue of variance in the number of learners in the system versus the actual learners in certain schools, hence reducing capitation in some schools and occasioning overcapitation in others. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. At present, the book distribution for junior secondary schools across the country stands at 90%. The distribution is of 992,884 books to 18,605 schools in the country. In material constituents, for example, the distribution is at 95% across all running areas. The balance of 5% will be distributed before the end of this month. There has been delays in meeting the initial deadline of 17th February 2023 for various reasons, and specifically, Mr. Speaker, we had 10 publishers who were contracted to supply the books, and there was a delay in providing the books. The 10 publishers are as given in my answer. I don't have to mention each and every one of them, but their delay on their part was attributed to the fact that we have only 10 capable and competent publishers who are capable of printing, and they were not able, because of the quantity and the number of materials that they were supposed to print, to supply the said materials within the timeline that we expected them to do so. And the entire copies of textbooks, I think, were over 17 million, and also during the time that we had given them the contract, some of them were not able to get the required wood quality papers. They had to import from other countries, and hence there was a delay because of that. And thirdly, also in supply of these textbooks, some parts of the country, like North Rift, when we supply, we have to get security personnel, and because of the kind of insecurity that was going on, there are areas that were not accessible, and we are trying to access those particular areas as of now. And Mr. Speaker, we have also said the distribution of books is actually detected from the capitation from each and every runner, which is provided for 3-day secondary schools and these other secondary schools. And this particular year, we have also said the amount that we will be able to detect from each and every runner to make sure that we are able to provide the required books to all our schools. And the second set of the question was on, we have also given a breakdown on how the books have been supplied, and I think that is in the appendix, which we have been able to supply, indicating where we are and how much we have been able to supply, and those that we are yet to supply, because the publishers and the printers have made a commitment that the percentage we are remaining with, it is only this very short time that we will be able to provide where we have not been able to provide. And the second set of the question is on NEMIS, and as members are aware, the registration of both runners with and without party certificates is captured in NEMIS, but those who access the funds are only those with the birth certificates. And as per 60 June 2023, there were 3,883,139 runners in secondary schools who were on the NEMIS platform. Those fully registered, Honorable Speaker, are 3,670,839, which is 95% of the runners on the system. The remaining 212,300 runners, which is 5%, are not fully registered, such that, yes, they are in school, but they cannot be able to access capitation because the necessary details or birth certificates have not been provided so far. So we have that figure, and progressively it improves because we insist with internal security, our chiefs and assistant chiefs, to follow up the parents so that we get the documents, so that this number each and every time comes down, is minimized, so that each and every person in a school is able to access capitation funds. Otherwise, 5% of this is the only number which I hope as we move on, we should be able to have this number reduced. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, thank you, Minister. Supplementary by the questioner. Honorable Edwin, you have the first bite to your question. Give Honorable Mugo, or you have no supplementary? Next to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would want first to thank the CS for a very comprehensive answer. My only concern is on the fixed amount that is normally given to each school, because as you are aware, you know, I mean, there is this policy by the Minister of one child, 1 shilling, but you know, if you don't give this fixed amount, the schools that have fewer learners, like these secondary schools, will be affected, especially on the infrastructure issues. So maybe I would want to urge the CS to see what they can do to increase that fixed amount that should be given to each school, especially for administrative activities and for some other basic issues like sports. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Ruku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the CS for all the questions he has answered. Mr. Speaker, there are quite a number of schools in my constituency in Bear North whereby the congestion in the dormitories, you find that one cubicle is accommodating more than 6 students. And we wonder, Mr. Speaker, whether we have education officers who are responsible enough to ensure that all the schools are managed in a proper manner, so that the board of management or the board of management, they don't allow the schools to be completely rehabilitated to the extent that boys and girls in those schools are getting extremely congested, and they are not reporting these matters to the appropriate offices to ensure proper actions are taken. I want to know whether the guidelines within the Ministry of Education allows a situation whereby we can get one room shared by more than 6 students, or a situation where we have one bed with 3, or you can call it 3 double deckers. I don't know whether it's 3 double deckers.
Can't be double. Call them 3 deckers.
3 deckers.
Yes.
3 deckers, where one bed is at the bottom, middle, and another boy or girl sleeping at the top. That is a situation I have seen in quite a number of schools, and in a situation, Mr. Speaker, which is not going to experience. Thank you.
Phyllis Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Cabinet Secretary is, Eldoret is considered as a workstation under municipality, and the teachers who work in that environment are supposed to benefit from enhanced house allowance. Unfortunately, there is one school in the municipality named Chebarus Primary where the teachers are not benefiting from the same enhanced house allowance. So I wanted the minister to clarify, the Cabinet Secretary to clarify why they are disadvantaged. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister, let's take one more. Women Rep Tarakanithi.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak for the special schools. Mr. Speaker, sir, special schools depend on the government entirely for funding the learners, paying the non-teaching staff, and running the schools. The government gives funding, that is grants and top-ups, to these schools. The last time top-up was disbursed is December 2021, while grants was disbursed last year in October 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, the management has struggled to run the schools with a lot of challenges. The non-teaching staff have not been paid for several months, Mr. Speaker, sir. So I wish to ask the CES, what measures has your ministry put in place to end the starvation in the special schools and have the learners get the much needed services, especially in Kaironi Primary School Special Unit, Karadani Primary School Special Unit, and Kon Primary School Special Unit, among other special units in the Rakanidi County and the entire country, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir. As members might be aware, of all our secondary schools in the country, 30% are boarding schools. We have a category of national schools, special these county schools, and Kenyans, each and every one of them wants to take his or her child to either national or extra county school. And therefore, those particular schools are actually overstretched. 70% of our schools, Honorable Speaker, sir, which are day schools, you will find they are not as overstretched. And that's why going forward, we say we want to equip more our day schools, and also for parents to see the need of taking their children to day schools, because as it is of now, our national schools, we cannot be able to accommodate more than what we are accommodating, because the classrooms, the dormitories, the dining rooms, almost in each and every school, the situation is such that they cannot be able to accommodate anymore. And even the intake, we have given each and every school going forward, because sometimes they also go beyond. We have said unless we have facilities, we don't want our schools to go beyond. Funds, Honorable Member, we are able to do as much as you give us funds, because you know the tuition funds you give us, the money that we get from the August House for extracurricular activities. In actual fact, again, we started the extra activities right from schools, and then they go to sub-counties, to county, to region, all the way to national level. So each and every time we find we have a serious shortfall, and that's why we go for other partners. Like this particular year, in order for us to manage the extracurricular activities, we had to get the support of the Ministry of Youth, Sports, because of the fund they have, which you are aware of, the Sports and the Socio Performance Fund, and they were able to give us 276 million. It is what made it possible for us to conduct the extracurriculum activities that we were able to conduct. Eldoret, Honorable Member, I think I've heard you. In case there's a school within the municipality where the teachers are not enjoying the amount that they are supposed to enjoy in the form of the funds which others are enjoying, kindly bring it to my attention. I've taken note it is Jeparus primary school, because if it is house allowance, they should be given like other teachers within the municipality. Special schools, we give them an enhanced capitation of 37,000 when the normal ones we give 22 million. And what we normally do, even when we find we get money in phases, we normally start with the special needs school. So I'm sure that in the course of this week, because we are accessing capitation funds, we will be able to consider those special needs school in giving them the amount of capitation that is designated for those schools. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir.
The question by Honorable Gabriel Kagombe. I have a request from him that Kawanjiku from Kiambaa will ask the question on his behalf. Kawanjiku, go ahead. Give Kawanjiku the microphone.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask the question 245 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary outline specific measures being pursued by the government to ensure that children with autism and autism spectrum disorder obtain equal access to education? Question 2, state the modalities used by the Ministry and the Kenya National Examination Council in availing alternative examination modes or avenues for autistic children who are not able to undertake written examinations. Number 3, confirm if the Ministry intends to incorporate all assessment of autistic children in the competence-based curriculum, that is CBC, as well as the engagement of teachers who are specifically trained to handle children with autism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir. The set questions I have from the clerk of the National Assembly, which is here, Honorable Speaker.
It doesn't have that question?
It does in the future, and the question has not been brought to my attention because the questions are already here.
Kawanjiku, you'll tell Kagombe will step down his question to the next time the minister comes. Nonetheless, there is a question by Naisula Lesuda that is not listed but has an answer provided. I've been informed that Jaka Wamboka of Bomola is to ask on her behalf. Minister, there is a question coming.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity first to thank the Minister, who is becoming a friend of this House by responding to our questions.
He's always been, he was a member in the last Parliament.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Question by Honorable Naisula. Could the Cabinet Secretary state the amount of money that was disbursed to each private university for government-sponsored students in the financial year 2022-2023, and the amount of money proposed to be allocated to each private university in the financial year 2023-2024, listing the amount of funds per university. 2, provide statistics of the number of government-sponsored students placed in each private university since 2019 to date, detailing the number per year against each private university, and the number of self-sponsored students in each university per year. 3, confirm why the practice was entertained even when there are no sufficient spaces, even when there are sufficient spaces in public universities. And finally, explain how the new model will ensure the survival of public universities, given that the cost of courses priced by the public universities against the undercutting offered by private universities. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, sir. One, there are 3 main reasons that inform the policy of admitting government-sponsored students in private universities. The first reason, Honorable Speaker, is the legal framework. The Universities Act 2012 established the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service Board as per Section 56(1) of the Act, which provides that the placement service shall coordinate the placement of the government-sponsored students to universities and colleges. Section 2 of the same Act defines a university as a university to which a charter has been granted. There is no distinction as to whether it is private or public for purposes of placement of government-sponsored students. At the same time, Honorable Speaker, sir, Section 56(3) of the Act requires the placement service to establish a criteria to enable students access the courses for which they applied, taking into account the students' qualifications and the listed priorities. The law therefore placed value on the choice of a student for purposes of placement, and this is the legal framework for which private universities were based. And I will request the honorable members also to vote the hazard, because there was a serious discussion in this honorable house in 2012, and the honorable members, one, if you look at the answer, there was an argument to put the public, and the public item was actually removed by this honorable house, and therefore it provided the loophole in the legal framework for what was now done, admitting government-sponsored students to private universities, to be done since the year subsequent to that act. Mr. Speaker, sir, before 2016, admission to public universities was determined by their available bed capacity. Due to the limited capacity in our public universities, the cutoff points for admission were increased in successive years, rocking out many eligible students. For example, in the year 2014-2015, 165,000 candidates had C+ and above, against a capacity of only 63,740. This saw only 38.6% access university education, while 61.4% were left out. In the following year, 2015-2016, 61% of those with a C+ and above were also left out. In this regard, placement of private universities was useful in helping to address the capacity constraints in our public universities and increasing access to university education. Consequently, in the year 2016-2017 placement cycle, for example, the percentage of students placed in universities grew to 93.46% from 39.02%. The preceding year, table Q007, which I've given there, shows the percentage of students placed when capacities in both private and private universities were utilized. So you can see in these years the number has actually gone up because we kind of created room for others to get into private universities, and the number went to 93.46%. In addition, Mr. Speaker, private universities also play a critical role in increasing capacity for competitive and priority programs, both locally and internationally. For example, the total capacity declared for Bachelor of Nursing in the year 2022 candidature in both private and public universities is 1,520, with 555, which is 36.5%, being in private universities. So these Kenyans who are 555 who want to do nursing would not have gotten a place because we don't have capacity in our public universities for this particular course, nursing, because it's a technical area, to access this kind of education if we do not have certain private universities that were offering this particular course. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that after placement of students to universities, the university fund determines and allocates their available funding in accordance with the differential unit cost of the degree program, commonly known as DUC. The DUC has 14 programs, program clusters for undergraduate degree courses. The number of government-sponsored students enrolled in each cluster is used to determine the allocation of the available funds as allocated by the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, in the financial year 2022-2023, a total of 89,644 government-sponsored students in private universities were funded at a cost of 3,174,791,604. This translates to 18.11% of the differential unit cost. The recommending funding per student in both public and private universities is 80% of the DUC. So you can now be able to get the difference between 80% and 18.11. The amount that was dispersed to each private university of the government-sponsored students in the financial year 2022-2023 is indicated in Table 9, Q9, which indicates the amount, honorable members and honorable Speaker, that was dispersed to each and every university out of almost the 3.2 billion that you did allocate through the means of education. For the financial year 2023-2024, we projected that 18,430 students will be completing their studies, those from private universities. Consequently, the continuing students to be funded in private universities will be 71,214. If the amount allocated remains the same as the allocation in the financial year 2022-2023, then the 71,214 students will be funded at an average of 22% of the DUC. That is the differential unit cost, as opposed to 80%, which of course was the figure which we had committed as a government to be able to allocate. The amount that will be dispersed to each university for the continuing students will depend on the number of students to be funded in the university and the programs that they are pursuing. Because you know, like the most expensive course we have in the country is dentistry, which in Nairobi University was at 740,000. So if the government was to give 80% of 740,000, you will be able to see how that, how much it will be. I wish to inform the House, Mr. Speaker, that in the financial year 2023-2024, government scholarships and the new funding university model will not be available to students who choose to join private universities. And I repeat, government scholarships will not be available with effect from this coming financial year for students who make a choice to join private universities. Such students will either be eligible to apply for loans from the higher education loan support. And the third part of the question is that the number of self-sponsored students in private universities has been declining in successive years since the year 2019-2020 academic year, where it was 54.8%, and compared to the 2022-2023 academic year, where now it has declined to 20%. This can be explained by the fact that an increasing number of students in private universities have been funded by the government in the successful years, and we have also provided a table indicated as Q10, which provides the details of the enrollment. For the same reason of increased government sponsorship, there has also been a decline in the number of self-sponsored students in public universities, from 42% in the year 2019-2020 academic year to 21% in the year 2022-2023 academic year, as shown in the table Q11, which we have been able to indicate very, very clearly. Whether there are enough spaces in public universities, Honorable Speaker, we have said, as indicated in Section 56(1) of the Universities Act, it is the one which mandated the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service to place government-sponsored students in those private universities. The definition of a university distinguishing public from private, and I think that is one of the things that informed the decision that was taken then. The placement service has continued to place government students to universities and programs according to their choices, and therefore also something that we have now since rectified, and we will also be sending certain other amendments in due course to this House for consideration. The final part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that since the financial year 2017-2018, university students have been funded based on the differentiated unit cost of programs. The government was expected to fund 80% of the cost, while the household fund 20%. But over the years, the number of students placed to universities has grown tremendously and remarkably so, posing challenges the government's ability to meet the funding obligation. Indeed, the government contribution to the cost has been reducing from 66.4% in the financial year 2018-2019 to what it is now, this particular year, 48.11%, meaning we are not able to provide the remaining 32% to our public universities. And in the private universities, the figure is even lower at 18.11%. This has led to financial challenges in many of our public universities, and hence that is why we have been able to come up with a new funding system which we consider will be actually manageable, where government scholarships we will cover an average of 61%, government loan an average of that 5.5%, and also the contribution an average of 3.1%. And we have been able to, we will be able to use the mean testing equipment that we use in higher loans education board to determine the vulnerable who will be able to enjoy a scholarship of 82% as opposed to a loan of 18% and the household contribution will be 0, because these are those we consider the highly vulnerable in our society, who we consider that the income is almost 0. Extremely needy, they will be able to get a scholarship of about 70%, and the loan of 30%, and the household contribution will be 0, because these are those who have an income of between 0 and 23,000, about 20,000, so they will be able to get up from 23,000 up to around 50. The needy scholarships, we will be able to give 53%, and the loans at the 40%, and the household contribution will be 7%. And finally, the rest is needy. Anybody we consider enjoying a salary of about 200,000 will be able to get a scholarship of 38%, and if we so wish to get a loan of 55%, and the household contribution will be 7%. The new funding model has various strengths that will ensure the sustainability of our public universities, which are currently undergoing a lot of financial challenges, Honorable Speaker. The funding model is student-centered. Universities will no longer be funded in terms of broad figures. The funding model is based on the actual cost of the program being pursued by the student. This will eliminate the risk of underfunding our universities, as was the case under the DUC model. And from out of our analysis, the cost of programs in our private universities vis-a-vis our public universities, of course, in the various subject areas, we have been able to give examples in the table, like we have given for in the Bachelor of Education and Arts. You can see our private universities we have given for our public universities in the table, like KCA University, Management University of Africa, Kiriri University, and the Islamic University of Kenya. A Bachelor of Arts degree, 77,790, 78,600, 82,350, and for Islamic University of Kenya, 96,000. And of course, our public universities, which one getting access to our public university will be able to access scholarships and other benefits. We have Kibabii, Kisii, Masai Mara, Chuka University, where the same course, the cost is 122,400. We have given a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery, comparing the public universities plus the private. We have given a Bachelor of Commerce, and I think I don't have to go through each and every university, because we have had a comparative analysis between the private and the public, so that even in the portal of COOPS, we are putting the information so that when a parent is choosing to go private, he knows the consequences of the decision that is taking. And each and every university, we have also been able to provide this fee structure so that the parents and the students will be aware of the amount of fees and how much the government will be able to pay and how much they will be able to pay. Mr. Speaker, sir, there are various other factors that will help to mitigate against any potential undercutting, and they include the demand for a given university and university programs. Besides the cost is one such consideration that anyone wanting to join a university takes into consideration. The institutional and the program plan also play a major role. Public universities are therefore expected to position themselves competitively in the market. The placement exercise will prioritize the filling capacities in public universities before any such consideration to private universities, unless one so chooses, because it also depends on the choice of an individual, and as one said, choices have consequences. There is a specialized program sometimes not available, like the one I said of nursing, where we don't have enough capacity, and therefore private universities will also be able to come in handy, particularly in that particular area. On average, Honorable Speaker, the cost of attending private universities would actually be higher than public universities, because students in public universities will receive government scholarships, as I've said. The scholarships will not be available in the private universities. A growing demand for scholarships will attract more students and ensure the sustainability of our public universities. The cash flow in public universities under the new model will be better than under the DUC, because the amounts paid for the scholarship and the loans will be higher. The improved cash flow will enhance the quality of running and the training in our universities, because increased funds will facilitate the funding and improvement of the running and teaching resources, making the universities more competitive. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir.
Are you a holder of unclaimed financial assets? Surrender unclaimed financial assets today. Do not wait for the June 30th, 2023 deadline. Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite. Boresha maisha na bima. Je, wajua kwamba unaweza simamia gharama za matibabu usiyotarajia kupitia bima ya afya? Hakikisha unaelewa sheria na masharti ya mkataba wako wa bima, kama vile kipindi cha kusubiri fidia,